1864 marked the end of the American Civil War. However, few know that in a decade, the North and South would fight again, 7,000 miles away from Gettysburg, in the mountains of Ethiopia. This was the Battle of Gura, a forgotten conflict that pitted Union, Confederate, and Egyptian soldiers against the Ethiopian army. This unusual conflict had interesting origins. The Egyptian state was trying to expand its empire and decided to turn Ethiopia into a slave state by force of arms. For various reasons, notable former Civil War generals such as General Luring, Riley Colston, and others participated on the side of the Egyptians. Who were these people, and why did they cross half a world to fight in a foreign war?
General Loring was born in North Carolina, and he moved to Florida, St. Augustine, Florida, at a young age. He grew up there, joined the state militia. When the Civil War broke out, he fought for the Confederacy, was involved in some of the Eastern Front. I know he didn't get along too well with his superiors, had some arguments with Stonewall Jackson. And then after the war, he went and fought for Egypt against Ethiopia. I know he didn't do too well there. I think he lost that one too. And came back to Florida. Eventually ran for Senate again. I believe he lost as well, and he died later.
Why did William Loring, a Confederate general, choose to fight against Ethiopia? Did his racial views affect his decision?
Absolutely. I think that's $1 million question. Especially, sometimes we get the impression, this is kind of a long backstory, but sometimes we get the impression about people who were fighting in the Union Army that they were committed abolitionists, but actually most Northern soldiers that ended up in the U.S. Army, including many of the commanders, the officers, didn't necessarily believe in racial equality. So they had racist attitudes towards Black people. And so that's also certainly true of people that fought in the Confederacy to defend the institution of slavery. And so there's no way to separate these folks, these mercenaries, pre-war and wartime racial attitudes from their post-war mercenary work in Africa, in the context of Africa. And so totally, I think that the way that they would have reacted to the people that they're tasked by Egypt with fighting against would have affected the way that they saw their job.
As the Egyptian and American army advanced, the Ethiopian state began to mobilize. There was no draft, no conscription, no forced enlistment. The fear of white supremacist hordes was enough to make ordinary Ethiopians flock into the army in the thousands. Many marched into the front without boots or any paycheck, as the government could not afford both. They did not fight for money or glory, but to protect their wives and children from the would-be wrath of Confederate and Egyptian white supremacists. As both sides prepared to fight, General Loring was confident, as he had a technological upper hand. However, he made one fatal flaw. He left the fort he built to fight the Ethiopian army head-on. He believed Ethiopians were a racially inferior people that could be crushed and enslaved easily. Fate, however, had a different plan. Since he abandoned his defensive advantage, the Ethiopian cavalry charged his exposed flanks. It was a complete rout. In General Learning's own words, the American and foreign staff threw themselves in the front, but after an extraordinary effort were forced along the retiring column. I had seen retreats before, but this one cannot be described. Generals, men, officers, artillery, horses, mules were all out of control in the greatest disorder. This reminds me personally of the movie Birth of the Nation, where it once said, "The North and South shall rise again to defend their Aryan birthright." But the North and South did rise 35 years prior to the movie, and it was their attempt to enforce their Aryan birthright that became a death sentence in the mountains of Ethiopia.